do it for you, and we do it for the culture.
culture. Oh, and I screwed it up, and I screwed it up, and I left the thingy there. Yeah, it's always screwing things up here. No, guys, welcome back to our Live in July event. We are raising money for breast cancer. My mother recently passed away of the disease. And we are raising money to start a tribute foundation in her name to help support local women in the Boston area with costs that aren't covered by healthcare, which is definitely a subject I think we can all relate to. My mom spent more money at CVS for bandages and gauze and ointment creams and stuff like that weren't covered by insurance than anything else. So we're raising money for that. So we do appreciate any support. The link to donate as well is in the comments pinned and in the description below. So either way, you can find it. If you can't share, we know tough times. If you can't share, if you can't donate, please share. That's free. Everybody has one of these guys, right? One of these cell phones. So don't tell me that you can't share because it's free. And free is for me. So guys, make sure to also like this video, share it on social media, and subscribe. If it's your first time here, welcome to the Pop Culture Corner. What we do here is what we want. And what we want to do is be a site or a channel that is able to talk to people in film and television, and a home for all fans of all things entertainment. And definitely follow us on social media. And remember, we do it for you and we do it for the culture. As Mark Pellegrino, that little clip, that's from me and Mark and I's first interaction, where I wasn't really too set up. I was in the living room. It was a mess. Now look at us, right? Kind of grown since then. But with that being said, the man of the hour, and someone I can consider a friend at this point, Mr. Mark Pellegrino. How are you?
What's up? How are you, man?
Every time you come, I don't know. I get a little giddy. Honestly. The girl that I've been dating, her and I, she hadn't watched Supernatural, and we started getting into it. We haven't got to where you enter the frame, considering that that's the best part. But we haven't got to you yet. But she has a huge crush on you and said that she would leave me for you. So I just want you to know that. Wow. I know you've been married since what, 2006, 2008.
Yeah, 2008. Yeah.
2008, right? Mm-hmm. So I hope we're good there. But listen, you were talking to me. You were talking to me about. So you wrapped on the project in Philly because you moved to Philly.
I moved to close other side of the state, Pittsburgh.
You moved to Pittsburgh. I always say Philly. I don't know why. But you moved to Pittsburgh.
It's a bigger city.
It's such a bigger one. You moved. But you're about to go back to where?
Back to LA, back to my hometown.
Are you sure you want to go back?
No, I'm sure I don't want to go back, but I do have to go back.
Yeah.
We have a house sitter there watching our cat Cody, but I miss him and I do want to see him. It's been 5 months, so I'm ready for a little California weather.
Yeah. So in our first talk, we talked a lot about acting. We talked a lot about your career, how you got you got into Lost, how, that story is still one of my favorite stories of all time. But here, just to kind of like break the ice and get our viewers in. By the way, shout out to everyone who's here tonight. I don't have enough time to say hello to each and every one. But remember, if you do want to ask a question, we do ask that you send a super chat, because all money raised this month, like any dollar that comes into the channel goes towards the breast cancer charity. So if it's a super chat, a super sticker, a membership fee, anything goes towards breast cancer and goes towards our tribute foundation for my mother. So we highly encourage it if you do want to ask a question. But a little icebreaker that I thought would be cool is I found out a fun fact about you today.
Uh-oh.
So you were high consideration to play the role of Castiel in Supernatural?
I guess so. Yeah, I heard that story too.
So I was, and I've been through your IMDb a million times, and I just must have never read it before. But so apparently you were highly considered you were in the front runner to play Castiel before Isha was cast. And I found that to be super crazy, because imagine if that went down that way. Do you think it would have been Castiel?
Sure, it would have been fun playing Castiel, but I don't remember if I even went up for that. I've heard this. Eric Kripke has said something like this publicly, but I don't remember this drama around it. I remember being asked to play Lucifer, and that's it. If I auditioned for Castiel, I don't remember the audition process. Thank God, because I didn't get it.
Yeah, because if that happened and you never ended up playing Lucifer, I'm not quite sure the show would have been the same. I really am not.
Well, I'm grateful for what I got. That's for sure. I think it all. It's funny. These kinds of casting things, it all works out in the wash. When you think of people in the past who have been offered parts that they turned down that went to other actors who then made that part iconic, you can't imagine that it was originally offered to somebody else. R.P. McMurphy, the character that Jack Nicholson played in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, was offered to Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
And there's tons of stories like that. So I'm glad I got to play Lucifer, because now nobody can really think of Lucifer without seeing me in their mind's eye. So I'm okay with that.
I agree. I know I can't. And I always say that, hey, listen, I'm friends with the devil, so I'm good. I'm good. But listen, so we had Owen Gleiberman on the show. He's a Variety. He's the chief film critic of Variety. And we discussed a lot of stuff with him, including the current shift. You've been in Hollywood for a long time. You've seen a lot of changes. There's this new wave coming in about cancel culture, like this cancel culture kind of environment. But you in particular, you are always willing to speak your mind for what you believe. What you never back down. I've never once seen you stray away from talking about how you feel or what you believe in. Are you even worried about that cancel culture environment, or is that something that lingers in the back of your mind at all?
Yeah. Nobody's safe, and nobody's quote unquote too big to be taken down by the mob. That's what they thrive on. They thrive on destruction, taking things down, dismantling what's been built up. That's their thing. That's how they get their self-esteem. And I speak out against it primarily because I see it gaining strength to the extent that nobody stands up.
Right.
And when you stand up against it, you're going to make some enemies in that crowd, and that crowd is relentless. They will never stop trying to find a way to take you out, but you can also never stop fighting them. And the more people start to see that you're not going to let your nervousness or anxiety over the fact that they have a certain degree of power over your life deter you from doing the right thing, the more courage that will give other people to do the same thing. I hope this cancel culture thing has peaked a little bit and is starting to eat its own in a way, and is so disintegrated and chaotic that they can't really get their shit together. They can't present any positive alternatives. All they can do is criticize and tear apart and break down. And people are beginning to get very bored with that.
Yes.
And people are starting to stand up en masse on various levels. And I think that's a really important move.
Yeah. How do you feel about the whole Cosby situation? With Cosby getting out, it's kind of raised that question. Like, I mean, how do people? We've asked, we've had some actors on over the past month, and we ask each one of them. Actually, I had Gary Gray on, who worked directly. Well, he was a baby, but he worked with Bill Cosby on the Cosby Show. As someone who is from Hollywood, looking in at that situation, especially someone like you, how do you feel about that he's getting out?
I mean, I didn't follow the trial too closely, so I didn't listen to the evidence that was presented against him. But if it's true that he drugged these women and raped them, it's a travesty of justice that he's getting out.
Yeah,
it sort of gives the lie to the idea of white privilege. Mm-hmm. There is such a thing as privilege, certainly, and celebrity can sometimes carry with it that notion of privilege, where the law doesn't look at you the same way as it looks at everybody. And to me, that's what privilege means. It's a favor bestowed on you by the political class, the people who are supposed to be the guardians and stewards of our rights, and who are supposed to see that everybody is equal, has the law equally applied to them. It's those people who are slipping up at the wheel and not doing their job the way they should. So if he did in fact do the stuff that he did, he should be in prison for the rest of his life. Look, I mean, I'm a guy that was not entirely against the death penalty when it was leveled for rape. So, I think when a man rapes a woman, he leaves her with a permanent scar that she could never get over. He leaves her with a permanent obstruction to any intimacy or relationship with other men forever, permanent fear, permanent anxiety. He takes something from her. He takes her innocence from her, and that can't be restored. And something permanent has to be taken from him. So
and that's your freedom.
Maybe freedom now. He can still breathe. He's not. No.
Nope. I misspoke. I'm sorry.
I say maybe life, but I'm a little draconian. And
No. I meant to say life. I'm sorry. Okay. I said freedom. But yeah. What I meant was I'm 100% on board with you. Listen, so you co-founded the. I'm sorry. Can you help me out with the name?
The American Capitalist Party?
Is the society in there?
No, but some people do say society. I don't know why. The American Capitalist Party.
The American Capitalist Party.
It is an alternative, an actual alternative to the tribalist, statist alternative that we have out there today that's passing for a two-party system. So I would say lump the Democrats and the Republicans on one side of the spectrum and make the American Capitalist Party the other side, and you got yourself a real choice.
Okay. And so you co-founded that. And it's something you're still strongly involved with, right?
Well, I wouldn't say strongly involved. Starting a political party and actually getting a candidate on the ballot are different and difficult. It's difficult in their own ways, right? Getting somebody on the ballot requires somebody to be on the ground, fulfilling all the requisite election laws that will enable a candidate to get on the ballot, which I assume are different in each state. But it's something like getting a certain percentage of the voters to sign a petition so that you can, prove that you get X percentage of the population voting for you, which enables you to get on the ballot. And then when you're on the ballot, you excite the attentions of the duopoly, who then are interested in taking you out because you're competition, and they attack you legally. This is stuff I found out from people who have run on third-party tickets before. They get attacked legally by the Democrats and Republicans both. So they're not really opposition. They're a team. They're an elitist team that are trying to keep out any competitive ideas. Yeah. So you have to have somebody who's willing to do that. I was willing to get the philosopher to write the platform, and myself and my partner Joe Sanders to edit it, think about it, talk about it, put it up, get it done, and have it out there so it's an island, a safety, a lifesaver for people out there who are jettisoning them from both parties because they just can't believe the insanity and the tribalism that's going on. And if they want something real and principled, something that's consistently for your individual rights, they should hop onto that. And so it's there. It's an island. It's an island for anybody who wants a refuge from the craziness.
Beautiful. That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. So how does one get affiliated with or where can someone find the American Capitalist Society?
The American Capitalist Party. You just
I just said society and I wrote it in there.
It's all right. I got that earlier today in my debate with Zuby, the host at American Capitalist Society. But you just write the AmericanCapitalistParty.com. It's all one word, and that will take you to the website. We were originally working on getting a more interactive website, but the people who were supposed to do that work for me gratis, because I don't want to pay any money for it, but have flown the coop, and that's sort of what you get when you need work, somebody to work for you for free.
Yeah.
That it's a site that needs to be updated, but it's okay for now. It'll give you something to think about.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yeah.
You were on today with a certain person. Is that allowed to be talked?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you were talking about pro-abortion and pro-life, pro-choice. As an actor, I feel like people, or actors, right? They kind of grow, or they get taught as they're coming up that politics are kind of taboo. Like, you don't want to get yourself in trouble by speaking your mind. Do you think there's a problem with that framework in Hollywood where, it's kind of becoming a little bit different now where everyone has a political agenda, but I feel like most people are limited. Like, we look at the Gina Carano situation where she says something online that has nothing to do with her character on Disney, but then she gets fired from Disney for saying that, for saying stuff like that. Now, is there something that you would do to change this, or like how can we change this political taboo that Hollywood seems to have?
Well, I mean, it's a mentality that's foreign to me, because I wouldn't consider firing somebody because of their political perspective. Even if I hated their political perspective, I wouldn't even really consider it. But we live in very tribalist times where people are aligning themselves according to parties and defending the party. And I guess by virtue of that, what the party supposedly represents, and on the left that I think predominates in Hollywood, they take their politics seriously in the sense that they are not afraid to intermix ethical sentiments and morals and moral judgments along with their politics. And I think that's correct.
Yeah.
I think that's correct because politics is downstream from ethics. After all, you're saying this is the kind of society that we should have. This is the way individuals should interact with each other. And of course, there's, I think, two ways of looking at that. And they're very committed to that side and consider somebody who isn't to be, a suspect morally.
Right.
And although I agree with that passion and that commitment and consistency, it just doesn't it doesn't move me to act in like manner against somebody who opposes me politically. I don't know what to do about it with respect to the community itself. Because there's always been this, either they were lurching right in the 50s or they're lurching left now. You can't train an industry to get intestinal fortitude and to stand up for itself. In part because I think it feels it has to solicit an audience and maintain its integrity with its morals, and so it's going to sort of lift its finger up and test where the wind blows and sort of push in the direction where the wind is blowing. And right now, the loudest, strongest wind is a minority of folks who have a very strong bias towards, people on the right, white folks, very specific groups of people who they claim hold the power, and they are trying to dethrone them from their dominant position in society. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know, other than open discussion and stopping the conversation about banning things. I don't think I am definitely an enemy of critical race theory, but I don't think it should be banned. I'm an enemy of communism too, but the idea should be out there in the world.
Right.
We should debate them in an open forum and repudiate them like this. Discuss, debate, and in that interaction, we'll figure out what's true and what's false.
Right. And so, that leads me down the path of, kind of like free speech and stuff like that. Whereas, if you, on Facebook or Twitter or even YouTube, believe it or not, I feel like some people don't want to believe it, but for instance, we talked about Britney Spears the other day, and they demonetized our show because they don't want to allow that speech to be. They don't want to allow that to go on. They don't want to allow. They don't want to push that agenda, and they don't feel that it's their place to do or whatever. I don't know why they do what they do. So it seems like, what's your ideas on these companies, like these social media companies? Are they becoming more of a place where it is becoming free speech and not a private company? Like, because a private company can dictate what you say and what you can't say, or
Right.
what you do, what you can't do. But I feel like in this world, especially after the pandemic, places like Twitter or places like Facebook, they are almost becoming a way for free speech to be, for people to speak freely.
Yeah, do they have the right to enforce their own speech codes and prescribe certain kinds of speech? Sure, it's their private company. They have a right to do that. Do I think it's fair? No. Do I think it's honest? No. I don't think it's a good way to do business. I would hope the market would rise up and create alternatives to this, so that people don't have to feel subjected to subjective standards of speech, or to feel like their voices are being locked out deliberately. But hey, when people come over to your house, you invite a certain set of people, and you don't have to invite others. And as it is, their platforms allow people enormous latitude and they magnify lots of voices. even voices like mine, which are definitely countercultural and probably rub all of the people in Twitter the wrong way, but they allow me to speak, and sometimes they end up dropping the hammer on people that I don't think they should, and it's not very fair.
Yeah.
But to the extent that they're starting to do the government's bidding, where the government is pointing to social media posts and saying this shouldn't be allowed, this shouldn't be allowed, this shouldn't be allowed, and they are following the bidding of the government, to me they are then losing the status of being a private company. They're being an arm of the government, and they are censoring. And the government may be trying to get around it by saying we're just advising them. This is just we're just pointing at this and saying we don't appreciate this, and they can choose to follow or not. But that is definitely a slippery slope to actual censorship. So censorship is a government thing. It's not something that private individuals do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So I mean, in our current our current two-party, well, I mean, it's technically a two-party system, right? Would you still consider us a republic?
No, we're increasingly turning into a democracy.
Right, and so for some people, they don't know the difference. Could you explain that?
Well, democracy is majority rule, and a republic is indirect rule, where checks and balances decentralize power and protect the rights of the minority. So a democracy is, by its nature, a violator of the rights of the individual and of the minority. And a republic is an attempt on a wider scale to protect the rights of the minority through checks and balances and a decentralization of power. So the power isn't concentrated in many. It's not concentrated in the few. It's not concentrated in the one. It's split between all of them, and there's a judiciary that hangs over them that is able to sort of become a final arbiter in the struggle for power between all of these, and also in indirect elections, which I thought was probably a better solution to our presidential issues. I feel like the presidency has gone downhill since it's been a straight popular election, and perhaps it's been the same with the direct election of senators. It used to be all indirect, and I think that's sort of not such a bad idea to return to.
Okay. Do you think? Man, I feel like I don't even want to ask this question. What do you think about voter fraud in this past election? It's been a topic that I know is kind of come and gone. It's, yada, yada. But what do you think about, because I haven't spoken to you since then. So, what did you think about that whole situation and the voter fraud and the mail-in ballots and stuff like that?
It does seem like a few states changed the rules unconstitutionally for the expediency of the moment. And they do have the fact that it was an emergency, quote unquote, or a unique situation to fall back on. But I don't think it was necessarily constitutional. And I don't think that standards for voting, particular days for voting, delimited spaces for voting is a bad thing.
Okay.
I don't think voter ID is a bad thing. I think that contributes to transparency. I think specific times for voting instead of these long, month-long periods where things can come in late, all of that does create a situation where it's more amenable to being a fraudulent process. And I would like to mitigate that as much as possible, because I would like my vote to count.
Right.
And I'm sure anybody else who is voting legitimately would want their vote to count. So voter ID laws are not onerous. They're not racist. They're just a means of confirming your identity, which should happen.
And I saw you on Twitter in a kind of, not a debate. I don't want to say it was a debate because it's a clear cut. it seems logical when I think about it, but then again, I'm not everybody, or not everybody thinks like I do. With the whole thing what happened with Georgia and how they were, was it Georgia? It was Georgia, right?
Yeah.
How they were requiring identification for you to vote, or I feel like I'm getting this wrong, and I don't want to get it wrong. But that affected basically what she was saying was, poor African Americans can't afford an ID, therefore couldn't vote, therefore their votes didn't matter or count.
Yeah, I mean that it's such a condescending and disgusting framing of the argument. I don't even think it represents reality. It's certainly a mental map that they have of the system and systemic oppression of certain people. But to claim that African Americans are uniquely incapable of getting an ID like anybody else in the world, or uniquely poor and cannot afford an ID or can't get to a polling place, is so infantilizing. I would be distraught, to say the least, if people thought that of me. But this is sort of a generally accepted notion of the way certain people are, and I think it's false. I think it's infantilizing. I think it's false.
Yeah.
I think it's just a way of getting and keeping dominance. It's just a way of keeping people back on their heels and trying to get your way at the polls. This hyper democratization where everybody should be eligible to vote irrespective of qualifications or ID is just nonsense.
Okay.
Liberty in a plebiscite doesn't mean no rules.
Right. And an ID, I mean, do you think that the government should issue each person an ID for free? Like the first one, kind of like.
I mean, I don't think the government should be issuing IDs to anybody. It's none of their business who you are, and I don't like them keeping track of individuals. Individuals should be free from that kind of oversight, to be honest with you.
Well, but then how do you vote? You know what I mean?
You go to the DMV and you get an ID or a license like every other human being has to.
Okay, but the government has nothing to do with it.
Well, I mean, that's a whole other topic.
No, I know, I'm simply so what you're saying is, because basically my point was like, well, you say you want IDs.
I think some form of verification, and the type of verification is varies from place to place, but it can be a phone bill, a present bill that shows that you have residency somewhere, that you actually live at the address that you're claiming to live at. There's nothing unreasonable in that.
No, I agree. There is nothing unreasonable about that.
Yeah.
So okay, that makes a little bit more sense, like when you put it that way. Because when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I mean, my solution may be that, okay, well, maybe the DMV, maybe the RMV, or whatever it's called now. Everyone gets their first, kind of like when you go to work, you get your first uniform free, but if you lose it, next time you have to pay for it. Could that be a way around this issue that we seem to be having?
I don't know. You got me.
Well, I don't think it's such a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, but provided there are alternatives too for people who, for some reason, can't get an ID. I can't believe that's a large percentage of the population, because you need an ID for pretty much everything in this country, and that means everyone's got to have something like that. And if you don't, for some reason, if you fall into those cracks, if you're one of the unfortunate folks out there that really, really is having issues getting this stuff, you can still present the bill that shows that you are living currently in the place that you say you're living, and that will suffice in many places for an ID.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that kind of ends that then. I
definitely don't think there should be federal oversight or federal laws. I like look, part of the deconcentration of power is that the states are co-equal members of this union, and they make election laws, and they should be allowed, unless they're doing something egregiously unconstitutional, like like they did before and leading up to Jim Crow, where they did poll taxes and literacy tests, and they really did find ways to disenfranchise Black people, as opposed to just requesting an ID or making sure polling times are specific as opposed to all over the place and forever. Unless the state is doing something along those lines, I don't think the federal government has any right to intervene. I don't want the federal government dictating universal voting laws to anyone.
Okay.
Let the states decide for themselves what those days are, laws are, places, everything. Let them do it.
Yeah. Do you think that the pandemic was handled correctly or terribly?
Terribly.
Terribly by the federal government directly.
Yes.
Now, do you think
and the states and many of the states as well?
So it's okay. That was going to be my follow up. So you don't think if the states, if each state by state they were allowed to do what they wanted or do what they thought they needed, do you think that it would have been any better?
Yes, for sure.
For sure.
But I look, I think the federal government and even state governments have a place in the containment of a pandemic.
Right.
But I think that place is in quarantining sick people.
Yes.
Not shutting down, not universally closing down the economy and preventing people from living and from carrying on their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is so massively immoral. I don't even know. There's no words that can describe how awful that choice was. And I think the problem was once they started going down that route, everybody started doing it, and you had to be the guy that did it too. Otherwise, you were seen as somebody who wasn't doing enough to try to prevent the spread of COVID. But
well, for me to be, and I was told straight up, I was brought into an office and I was told, you are not essential, and to pack up my desk and
there you go
home.
Yeah, well,
who is, pardon my language, YouTube, I swear this is the only one I'll do, keep me PG-13. Who the fuck has the right to tell me that that the way I make a living is essential or not? What if I feel bad for all these mom and pop shops that, to them, their store, they've saved all their money for all their life to create this store. They've invested all their time only to have it taken away for a year. And now they have no way to make money or to feed themselves. And the government told them, no, you are not essential. You cannot open. However, Walmart was open. Jeff Bezos became richer, right? Amazon kept functioning. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, indeed, this is the kind of conflict of rights and I think overall humanitarian disasters that happen when you set up a society based on a collectivist vision of responsibilities to each other. You don't see individuals, you see groups, you see society, and the society needs leaders and elitists who can sort of see the entire picture and decide who is better for society. They're not even thinking of the individuals they're crushing in the meantime. Allison Beard says, why don't you run for president? You're intelligent.
That's part of the deal we made, is that each super chat, if you wanted to ask a question, I would put it up there. Would you ever consider a run for president?
No.
He's like, no,
but,
get out of here.
And that actually probably makes me more qualified, just by virtue
just
of the
on
fact
that alone,
that I don't want to do it.
And
because I do think if you have the ambition to be the president of the United States at this stage in the development of our government, there is something seriously wrong with you. You should really, I mean, for us folks out there watching the political scene, it was easy to see that Trump was off of his gourd, off his rocker. But he was just the overt manifestation of what all these other creeps have going on internally. They're all, excuse me, I was going to say fucked up. I said it anyway. There you go. Okay. They're all messed up. They're all absolutely psychopathic, and because they're seeking power over people, they have the gall to get up there on a stage and preach about how you need them, and how they're going to save you from yourself. No, I don't want them to save me from me. I don't think anybody else really needs them to save them from themselves. We would be better off if the political class just went away. Even if they just went away, if they gave us a break for 3 months, we'd all be better off.
And then they send you, well, hey, don't worry, they're gonna send you $1,200, right? They're gonna send you a check, and you'll be able to pay your rent for half a month, and we've done you a favor now. Like we helped. Yeah,
you know what it is? They have the entire federal government has Munchausen by proxy syndrome.
Can you explain what that is? I'm not familiar.
Yeah, it's mothers have this syndrome when they make their children sick so that they can take them to the hospital and get attention for being heroic. And then the doctors fuss over the kid, they fuss over the mother. She comes back home with the mother, and then promptly makes the kid sick again, sometimes by poisoning him. Many different. Then they go to the hospital again because the drama and the attention, the idea of being the savior, it's what gives her a sense of self-esteem. Well, that's exactly what these politicians have. They create the damage, and then they ride in on the white horse in their shining armor, claiming to be saving us from the shit they've done to us. I'm done with that, and I hope everybody else is.
Yeah. Could you honestly, and I'm being 100% honest when I say this, do you see civil unrest or a potential uprising in the future? Something like the Civil War. I'm not saying to that same degree. I don't think that that's the way things would happen nowadays. But do you see that someone, maybe this person that isn't around yet or whatever, could bring people together and get them to rise together, in like a Martin Luther kind of way, and get them to stand up and pretty much show the government that we're not going to stand for it anymore?
I've thought that there might be. I think there's rumblings of secession out there.
Maybe that's you. Maybe that's who you are. Could you be that guy? No, I'm just kidding. Maybe you could be that guy.
I think there are states that are sort of fed up with the relationship with the federal government, and they are starting to assert themselves more, and that may lead to the idea that, well, maybe this union isn't perpetual. Maybe it is a compact of states, and since you're breaking your compact with us, maybe we can now leave. Maybe we can leave. So we'll see. I've thought that the gulf between the establishment left and right is unbridgeable, even though they're sort of essentially the same. They hate each other's guts, and I didn't think that gap could be bridged by anything but some sort of violence and or movement away from each other, a divorce of some kind.
Right.
I'm certainly deeply considering moving out of California, and I've lived there my entire life. I was born and raised there.
Well,
and many of my friends have left, and a few of my friends I went to high school with in the Valley in Sherman Oaks are leaving. So all of us are now considering the idea that the paradise that we once knew has been turned into a hell by the political class.
Thank you, Lucky Charms and Allison and everyone else who sent super chats. Lucky Charms, thank you for the $50 super chat. Mark, on cancel culture, have you noticed that cancel culture seems to target white? I don't know. Can you pronounce that word? Is it she?
I don't know. Sichet. I don't know. Sichet. I don't know.
Let's just say
that's the new version of cis male. I guess.
White male females more than any other group. Do you feel like it's some type of vengeful payback for what white ancestry or what our ancestors did?
It is certainly a vengeance movement, and it's certainly supposed to be payback for what white folks did for hundreds of years.
But I never owned any slaves, right? Like
nor did I, or nor did my family. My family didn't even come here until the 20th century. So,
right, and that's the problem I have with that. Like when someone of that that race attacks me or says that I am this or that, or
I don't feel attacked by people of color as much as I do white leftist creepy leftists who have bought the unearned guilt line, hook, line, and sinker, and are and probably are very racist themselves,
right,
and projecting that onto me. The white woke world is really a despicable, self-hating place to be, and I find that they're the ones who are the primary perpetrators of this crap.
Right.
No, not others. I mean, there are some people who now have permission to be as vile and racist as they want to be, because now they can direct it at a certain group of people and claim that they're not being racist when in fact they are.
Right.
But no, I think the worst offenders are the white people.
Okay. I mean, I can't necessarily argue with that for sure. So I had a question asked, and I know this is like now kind of like not on topic, but they did ask me to ask. Do you have a favorite TV show? Like something that you watch, like to kind of like escape from the world of. Let's face it. Actually, I could tie it in. I'm good at that. I study Joe Rogan. That's another question as well. Do you have something that you do? I know you do martial arts.
I did.
You did martial arts.
Yeah.
You haven't done them in a while.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you do to kind of like escape the world of politics and all this stuff, even if it's just for a little while? Maybe it doesn't even have to be a TV show, but are you like, what do you do to escape?
I mean, I think my favorite escape is watching horror movies.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why that is.
That's not really. I mean, that's great. That's great.
But not like cheesy horror movies. I like good horror.
A Quiet Place 2. Did you see A Quiet Place 2?
I did see A Quiet Place 2. I did like that.
It was phenomenal. I mean, I thought, I don't know. I'm gonna have to probably go with the first one. More, but I mean, the second one I think definitely held its own. Yeah, there it is. There it is. He said it wasn't coming through. There it is. Mark, Hat's your favorite TV show. So, what is your favorite TV show if you had to pick one?
Oh boy. I mean, I liked. It's funny because I'm doing a show called TV Talk for the Daily Objective, so I have to watch lots of TV now.
The Daily Objective is a political thing, right?
We mostly do politics. Yeah, politics and philosophy.
So who runs that?
Rosie Ginsburg. It's out of the Ayn Rand Center, UK.
Okay, I always confuse these couple ones. What's the one Ben Shapiro does? The Daily Wire,
probably.
Okay, they both have like the Daily something in it,
right.
And I always confuse the two. And I was like, wait a second. All right. So, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, so I mean, I just finished watching The Night Of, which I thought was a fantastic series. Yeah, great. Loved it. And I went over Breaking Bad again because I'd seen that about 4 years ago, and then we had to rewatch the entire series for the show, and that was riveting for me, of course.
Yes.
But and sometimes, get my horror fix, I'd turn on American Horror Story, but I can't decide yet whether I hate that show or love it. It's like my relationship with it is like to a scab that you have to scratch, but it hurts kind of and feels good at the same time. Yeah. Right now I'm in the season with The Hotel, and it's
hotel one's listen,
very sketchy. It's very
sketchy. Evan Peters does an amazing job in anything that he's in. Evan Peters, like for Cult, he was the, cult leader. You know who Evan Peters is, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, cool. He's amazing. I love him. The hotel one, like it's like American Horror Story is like hit or miss because there are certain seasons that I'm all in on, but then there are other seasons. I liked Cult the most. I liked the first season, the house or whatever. I don't know what it was technically called it
was the Murder House.
The Murder House.
Where Evan was, he was a ghost of the one of the kids, like the mass shooter at the school.
Yes. And then I liked Coven because I like that style of stuff.
I ended up liking that too. It started off sketchy, but I ended up really getting into it. And I ended up getting into the carnival one too.
Yeah. So, wait, which one was Asylum?
I want to say that was season 2, wasn't it? Season 2.
Rose.
And then
Rose brought it up. Rose Richards. Also, she asked something.
Asylum was good.
Asylum. I think Asylum was season 2. I think it was actually. I think that was the second season. But there is a new season coming. Or a new season out. I'm not sure. I don't follow it. My ex-girlfriend, she made me watch it, and then I started getting into it. But it's one of those things that I could feel like I could choose whatever season I wanted to watch because they're not the same. So but that was kind of cool, kind of a cool way to do it. So
yeah. Well, I do it sort of as a guilty pleasure, and when I need a horror fix and I can't find a movie that works for me.
Rose asked, "Hi, Mark," with the devil sign. I love when they include that for you. I wanted to know for a while, how was it to meet Alice Cooper, and what is the things you won't do in your life want to see you thinking? I'm not sure what the second half of that is.
It was cool meeting Alice Cooper. I mean, he's an icon and a really nice dude. So it's nice when you meet somebody who sort of defines your childhood in a way, and then you're not disillusioned by them when you see them later on. As sometimes when you meet idols in person, they can be quite disappointing. And he wasn't. Yes. He's a really down to earth guy. Yeah, and considering he's sort of a rock god, it's great that he's like that. What won't I do? What won't I do?
I didn't understand that second part though. It says, and what is the things you won't do in your life? And then want to see you thinking is how I kind of took that. So I'm not sure. We'll wait for her to clarify on that one. Rose, if you could clarify on what you kind of meant there, that'd be wonderful. That'd be good. So you just got done with the project, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Can you talk about it a little bit, or is that not?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it right now. Yet it's going to be a good family drama. I think people are going to like it. It's gritty. It's interesting. Okay. Great people in it. It's also a mystery, and so I think people are going to be pulled into the mystery.
Okay.
And the clusterfuck that it's
That's
going
the third
to be.
one. I'm done.
Yes, it's a
I'm out.
clusterfuck.
Just kidding. Actually, we got enough money in the super chats that it kind of equals it out.
So I said the F word again. Sorry about that.
No. I'm just kidding with you, man. Say it.
Okay.
Say it as much as you want. But so, you said it's gritty, dark. It's got mystery to it. But it's also a family drama.
Well, I mean, it's about family.
Okay. And is the reason that they shot it in Pittsburgh? Is it set in Pittsburgh?
It's set in a town just outside of Pittsburgh called Buell.
Okay.
I mean, so if you go to some towns just outside of Pittsburgh here, like Braddock, places like that, you'll see towns that are sort of blighted. You know, they were probably great steel towns in the 40s and 50s. You know, just after the war. But then when the steels started to go overseas and we started to lose the mills here, they became essentially ghost towns. So you can go through some of these places and see tons of buildings just boarded up and abandoned, and had been abandoned for years, and nobody's purchased them, and nobody's attempted to revitalize the place. It's just sort of a blighted part of the city.
Right. Okay, 1 second, because I did have something else. So, you know what is funny? I did not know that you were in National Treasure.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you a couple questions about that.
Sure.
If you don't mind. I know it's acting, but we've done a good mix, I think.
Yeah.
I can't seem to remember. Literally, it popped up as we were about to go on. Like, you came in as I was like, so who did you play in National Treasure?
I played Agent Johnson. I forget my first name now. It's been a while. Okay. And there was a group of four, Annie Paris. I want to say there was a group of 4 FBI agents that were always around Harvey Keitel.
Yes.
And I was sort of his right-hand man. And, you know, we all exchanged times when we had the screen, but we were all investigating the heist.
The heist, yes.
Together. And so that's sort of it. So you would see me in, you know, bits and pieces here and there, arresting Nicolas Cage and all that stuff.
Speaking of taboo actors, Nicolas Cage is what do you, I don't want to say like what do you think of him, but I mean, how was it to be on set with a guy who's like that, who's that energetic, who is that into what he does?
I've always liked his work, and I've admired his commitment, and he's very quiet and keeps to himself, at least from what I saw on the set.
Oh, I've heard a lot different, actually.
It could have been the part he was working on, and it could have been the scene. Yeah. It could have been the scenes that we were doing that day together. But I found him to be very focused and concentrated, and I liked watching him work. He was surprisingly buff. You know, I had to arrest him and I had to push him against the car, and I could feel his shoulder. He was like rock hard. Like, this guy's kind of scary.
I'm going to use that in a quote. He was rock hard.
Oh, don't.
Nicolas Cage.
Well, he was just. You didn't. You know, looking at him, you know, you didn't expect it to confront like somebody who felt like a linebacker. Yeah. But I've always respected his dedication. He's not afraid to try new things, and he's not afraid to look silly. That's the way an actor should be. You shouldn't be afraid to look silly. You got to go up there and take chances. And a lot of the stuff that you do may end up on the cutting room floor because it's terrible. But you know, you do 5 terrible things and 1 amazing thing. Hey, it was worth it.
Oh, right. Thank you, Rose. I meant like if you are too afraid of doing something, or if you just live and want to try everything without fear or regrets. If something crossed your mind that you said, nah.
Oh yeah. I would never
skydiving.
Yeah, I'm not going to skydive. I have no desire to skydive. I have no desire to go into some crazy wilderness area, naked or clothed. And
you don't go camping?
I don't go camping anymore, but I mean, I'm talking like Botswana, okay? Like, they drop the naked and afraid people in the middle of South Africa and they say, have at it. No, not for me.
Okay.
I'm not in for fighting lions for scraps. I'm not into swimming across the Amazon and getting bitten by piranhas or snakes. What else? There's a billion things that I'm afraid to do. And some things I'm afraid to do, but would do. I would, for example, swim with great white sharks.
Yes. You were a marine biologist. I
wanted to be a marine biologist, but I was always terrified of sharks. At the time that I wanted to be a marine biologist, Jaws had come out.
Yes. So can you tell this story again, please? I love this story. As you're telling it, I'm like, can you tell the story again? Because I'm an asshole.
I mean, well, yeah, I always had an affinity for marine life. I was, at a young age, I was a member of a bunch of environmentalist organizations, Cousteau Society, Audubon Society, Greenpeace, and I romanticized marine life in a big way. And I saw Jaws as a youngster in the drive-in theater, and it scared the living shit out of me. I could not, from that time on, go in the water. But I developed a fascination for sharks from that time on. It's sort of an obsession, but it was an obsession from afar. Almost like somebody can with a celebrity, where they collect pictures and they learn everything about them, but they won't go over there and say hi to the person. Like, I wouldn't do that with a great white shark. But at the time, the great whites were a mysterious prehistoric thing, and nobody really knew anything about them. And the ideas that we had in our head in the 70s were that they were these monsters, and frightening. And, they had your name, tattooed on their gums if you went out there swimming. But we know so much about them now that I would be less. I mean, I'd be freaked out to be in the water with something 20 feet long that's a prehistoric predator with a brain the size of a walnut, because that's pretty unpredictable. But there is an aspect of them that is very controllable, and we know quite a bit about their natures now, so it's not as frightening as it used to be. So I would probably do that. I mean, and I'm saying, like, not a free dive, but like, get on top of the cage. They do have shark dives where they put the cage underwater, and then you go on top of it and you sit on top of it while the sharks are swimming around you.
Yes.
Yeah, but what was the story that I told? Because I'm not sure what story that I told that might have been really interesting.
About what? So you were going to go into that field of marine biology, yet you changed your mind and went into acting.
Right, yeah.
Instead.
Yeah.
So why did you do that?
Well, I mean, in part because I was terrified of sharks, and I couldn't imagine myself going scuba diving with these man-eating creatures. But I also, didn't have I didn't have as much interest in some of the science that I probably would have needed. But is that the story? I don't remember now.
I think it was honestly the shark story.
Yeah, and then I ended up getting
I think it was.
I ended up getting my my certification for diving later on. But,
yes.
But now I have an inner ear thing, so I can't really dive anymore. So.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
So what was your first, like, so you were going to be a marine biologist, or you wanted to be, you're afraid of sharks, yada, yada. So you're a very historical, you love history, right? You're a history buff.
Yeah.
Why acting?
I mean, it's luck.
Just luck? Or luck?
Luck. I mean, do you call it luck? Chance, fate? more than fate. Yeah, something like that. Just things sort of pushed me in that direction, and I fell into an acting school that turned me on to the craft. Yeah.
And from there, just
Yeah.
took
From
off.
there.
What was your
Yeah.
first role again? I'm forgetting.
Oh boy. I think the first role that I did was a bad. No, I don't want to say it. I shouldn't say it. It's bad.
So, unless it's
All
like
right.
a
Okay.
unless
All
it's
right.
like a rated X film, you don't have to
No,
say
no,
that.
no. It's a. I would say that one. It's no. It's a. It's a. It's a bad big movie called Fatal Beauty with Sam Elliott and Whoopi Goldberg, and I was. I didn't know how to act at the time, so I was just lucky to be there, I think, and I did the best I could under the circumstances, but I had no idea how to act.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
I got that. I got that before. I got that before I did acting school, and ironically, I got it because I committed to this thing, and I dressed the part. I didn't know any better, and it was for Sharon Bialy. Sharon Bialy, who is a fantastic casting director. She did Breaking Bad and Walking Dead. But she was the one who gave me my SAG card. But I showed up to the audition, since I didn't know any better, not dressed the way I was when she called me back.
Right.
And she took me out and she's like, don't ever do that again. When you dress up like that, that was really something. I want to see that next time. I was like, oh shit. Okay. I didn't know. And the guy who directed that was Tom Holland, who directed the original Fright Night. And I think he did the Chucky series. I think he actually wrote Chucky and directed the first Chucky.
Yeah, and for anyone who's thinking, not Tom Holland as in the kid who plays Spider-Man.
Correct.
Different one. Different one.
Old guy now.
Yes, older gentleman now. But Allison Beard with the $5 super chat to breast cancer. Thank you, Mark. What is your dream movie franchise to work in? Also, whale sharks are amazing, and I would love to pet and swim with them. They're really beautiful.
Yeah, whale sharks are great. They have no teeth. I'll take that.
Yeah, they don't have teeth. I actually know that from Shark Week. Thank you.
Hey, isn't that on now?
Is it on now?
Yeah.
I learned that a couple of years ago. I did not know it was Shark Week at the moment. No wonder we're having trouble getting viewers.
So, movie franchise. I mean, I'm not huge into the movie franchises now, or what, superheroes, right? I mean,
yeah, we've talked about that though.
I mean, I'm not so into that. If they were to make a series out of 100 bullets, I would go for that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that comic series. It's pretty cool.
Or
American Vampire. I think the first 2 books of American Vampire, they're graphic novels, are really good.
Now, typically, you tend to play villains. Not, I don't know. I guess you could say typically, right? Would you say more often than not that you play maybe not a hero?
I play misunderstood people.
Well, yeah, I don't consider Lucifer to be a villain at all. I don't. So I'm not necessarily, I'm not talking about Lucifer, but in the classification of the story, yeah, technically I think yes, Lucifer's the villain of the story.
I think I tend to play man children.
I love that. I mean, Jacob was, he
wasn't a man child, but
yeah,
he had issues.
The story that you told me about the Lost, how you, for anyone who wants to know, we did Mark and I did a great podcast back in November. No, I don't remember when it was. December.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, and he tells a story about how he got the part of Lost, and I think it is one of the funniest stories and the greatest stories that I've ever heard. But Lucky Charms with another $50. Thank you so much. Getting a lot of support tonight. Mark, what is your? I'm gonna have to bring Mark more often. Mm-hmm. I think to help out. Mark, what is your favorite time in history to read up on, and why?
Oh boy, I love colonial America.
I was gonna say because you'd said that to
Yeah.
me.
Specifically, the American Revolution is my favorite time. But I also like Greek history because those were two times where, I mean, Greek history is literally the start of ideas, the formation of philosophy, the scientific history, scientific approach to history, science itself. I mean, it was the beginning of the human mind, so to speak, formally. I mean, not that it didn't start in other civilizations, but it really coalesced there, and it's
Right.
a very interesting time to read about. And we had that again in I think in a higher degree in the American Enlightenment during the American Revolution. So I love reading about those minds, what they knew and what they brought to the world. Certainly, there were complicated figures, but
For sure.
the legacy that they gave us is far greater than the complex aspects of their personal lives.
Yeah. And I mean, so we're gonna probably wrap it up in a couple minutes, but we've seen a slew of this happening with people wanting to destroy statues of men from that era. What is your stance on that? I mean, people even want to destroy like Abraham Lincoln statues and stuff. People are I think people are really misunderstood, or not misunderstood. I think they're uneducated in that sense.
Well, wokeism is not is a religion for sure, but it's not a forgiving religion, and it doesn't have space for forgiveness. And any sin that you commit at any particular time is fair game, always and forever. There's no statute of limitations. As far as Civil War Confederate quote unquote heroes, I don't think there are any. I do think that the Confederacy was the anti-American revolution. It represented anti-American values, and I think the men who engaged in it were criminals. Now, some of the people that were fighting on the ground were actually just fighting for Virginia or fighting for North Carolina. They were fighting for their particular hometown because it was being invaded in their minds by somebody they considered to be a dictator. And so their interests were more narrow. But in the end, they were fighting to preserve a country that stood for the antithesis of American values and stood for the institution of slavery. So I'm not for pulling them down. I'm for voting them out. I'm for doing it by legal processes because I think civilization is about persuading your fellow man that they are in error, not punching them in the face because you think they're wrong.
Right.
And it's not about destroying property. It's about convincing your fellow man that these men do not deserve to be honored in any way because they represented the antithesis of American values. As for Lincoln, the fact that they are destroying Lincoln statues just shows how unforgiving they are, because Lincoln was a man of his times as well as a man beyond his times. And because he wasn't sufficiently enlightened for them, for 21st century minds, they've decided to completely annihilate his history, which frankly doesn't deserve that. Irrespective of how he had to paint the political reasons for the conflict, the war between the states, as an attempt to hold the Union together and not to end slavery. The reason for the fighting was slavery. There's no getting around it. That house had to fall, and he was a philosophical linchpin that enabled it to happen. So he was a flawed man, a man of his time, but also advanced, and maybe not as advanced as we are in the 21st century with respect to our understanding of the insignificance of color in relationship to any moral evaluations of people. But he was still a powerful enough figure, and a powerful enough figure for good, not to be summarily tossed out. And like I said, if you want to toss a figure like that out, persuade your fellow man that it is the right thing to do. Don't simply tear it down. Stop being a frickin' savage. I said frickin' that time, not frickin' savage. Be a civilized human being and convince people that they are wrong. That's the way we do it in civil society.
Yeah, it's and that's again, that's what it's all about, is being civil and having conversation rather than jumping to conclusions. Someone mentioned Antifa, right? I mean, Antifa's been around for a long time, and it's not just in the United States. Antifa has been something that's been in a lot of places, and I mean, you look at that. What are your thoughts on those kind of groups?
Oh, they're disgusting.
Very, very disgusting.
Yeah, they're despicable, violent, anarcho-communist groups.
Would you call them domestic terrorists?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, their intent is to dismantle our structures, our governmental structures, cause chaos, and violence, and they should be put in jail.
Exactly.
And they should stay there until they're done being babies or violent criminals.
Exactly. Yes. And then we have the Capitol riots. People like that. The guy with the horns on his head who has now been painted in the to the right, at least, painted as this like the man that can do no wrong, or not, maybe not like that, but he's been painted as this like idol almost, when in reality, most likely, he sits or lives in his mother's basement and watches Alex Jones all night.
Well, the left is painting him as a terrorist that's a threat to everybody around him, and the right is responding to that nonsense with their own nonsense. The tribes are defined by one thing: their hatred of each other. That's it. And real policy doesn't matter anymore. Real principle doesn't matter anymore. What matters is getting one over on the opposition. If you're a Republican, that means getting one over on the Democrats. If you're a Democrat, it means getting one over on the Republicans. And so far, the only ones who have the real balls to get one over on the opposition is the Democrats. Because when they have power, they use it to fuck the opposition up for real. And the Republicans are much more circumspect about that.
Sure.
They just don't have the intestinal fortitude, and they're not morally committed. They're not.
Yeah.
Look at freaking Mitch McConnell in comparison to Schumer.
Yeah.
I mean, Schumer's about as sleazy and disgusting as you get. They both sort of are, but one guy is filled with moral righteousness, and the other guy is just a compromising slug.
Right. And do you think
who wins? The guy who's morally righteous wins every time.
Right. Every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time. So last thing before I let you get out of here, this is really, out there, right? The government, what are your beliefs? So do you believe in aliens or that we're not alone on this planet, not alone in this universe?
I don't know. I don't know that there's any evidence to suggest that yet.
Right. Well, so are you going to take the Neil deGrasse Tyson way out, huh?
I have to go with what there is. I can't speculate without any evidence.
Well, I mean, the government's been having these, the last thing that people think that Trump did right, or maybe the only thing that Trump did right, was order all of the, I call them the 3-letter agencies, to kind of come together at Congress and turn over what they have on UFOs and stuff like that, right? So I just thought it was interesting. Do you find that stuff interesting at all?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think they're military projects or private projects that, are terrestrial, but they're just super secret, and we're getting glimpses of it. I don't know. I tend to think that this might be just something to distract the rabble. One more shiny object to put in their face to keep them satiated.
Okay.
I don't know.
I can't.
Do you think there's aliens out there?
I just think there's been too many people or too many things that have happened for me to dismiss it altogether. I think is naive or not against what I believe, but I mean, you look at people like the Israeli space chief who has nothing to lose, and people argue that, well, dude, the guy's 80 something years old, like he's probably losing it. Well, no, he's highly decorated. He rarely has ever said anything or been out of line in that kind of fashion. And he was quoted as saying that, it sounds so weird when I say it, that there's a base on Mars that Donald Trump knows about and was going to give the trade secret up, however, was advised against it. I know. But I'm going somewhere with it. I'm going somewhere, that I promise. There's this federation of aliens that that the government is working with to keep hidden, and there's a base on Mars, hence why we are there or have the ability to get there. But there's something else there, and he says that the United States is directly working with this thing, and they're part of an alien intergalactic federation. But then there's also other things like Commander Fravor, who have, who are, highly decorated Navy seamen, and have seen things which are recorded as doing things that no craft that human technology could build can do. And yes, would you consider the United States to be the furthest or the most the most advanced nation in terms of technology?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so
in some respects,
in some respects, I mean, China's definitely up there, but
no, I think China's way behind us, but I think or behind us, and but there may be a couple other countries who are challenging for that.
Yeah. So this thing was able to not only go, move up and down, but sideways and back and forth. And it went from, I'm getting all the numbers probably wrong, but it went from sea level to, out of view in like 0.0006 of a second. And these things, they call it the Tic Tac, if you ever want to look into it. Commander Fravor and the Tic Tac. Then you got guys like Bob Lazar, who the government basically erased his life because he came out and said that they were working on spacecraft at Area 51 or S4. So I just think there's a lot of evidence that suggests that something is there. I don't know what it is, but it's becoming a little bit more mainstream in the sense that more people are like, if you had said, I believe in UFOs 10, 15 years ago, people laugh at you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if that bodes well for us. Right. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Yeah. I just, and some people have said that maybe that they're preparing us for something else, something
great.
First contact. Yeah.
Lovely. That's all we need. Alien invasion.
Alien. But hey,
I already feel like we're sort of there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the pandemic could have been a trial run. Can we make sure that people are locked away and stay locked away? And can we make sure that we can control? do you think all right, now we've opened a bottle, man. Do you think the pandemic was accidental or a lab leak or
I
coincidence?
don't know, but there seems to be some rumblings that it may have been a leak from a lab. Yeah.
Yeah, a lab in Wuhan.
Mm-hmm.
And then who's the CDC guy?
Fauci.
Fauci. The Fauci emails leaked, and then that all that stuff happened, where he's basically saying that these masks don't work. The medical masks,
Mm-hmm.
that the particles can move right through them, and that they were not effective at all. Yet he's out there saying, in public, standing next to the former president of the United States, saying that we need to wear these things, right? So do you think that the pandemic was a way to kind of grab control?
I don't know if it was deliberate or if it's just government seizing the opportunity and never letting a crisis go to waste. They're certainly seizing the opportunity. I'm hoping the American people can see it for what it is and break free.
Well, yeah. Okay, so let's play devil's advocate. Let's play Lucifer's advocate and say that it was a lab leak, right? It was a leak, and Fauci is part of it because Fauci funds the lab in Wuhan. Fauci directly works with that lab in Wuhan, and they were experimenting on viruses very similar to this COVID-19 virus, right? The whatever the molecule numbers and stuff are. Say it was a lab leak, and it was intentional, or it was, whatever. Could you see it being for? Could you? Why would you think that the government would do something like that, or why do you think that could be about control in a way to kind of?
Meaning, was the leak was deliberate or an accidental leak?
Well, I don't know if that. I mean, I guess it wouldn't matter.
I don't think that the government is intelligent enough to coordinate, the kind of logistical stuff that have to coordinate in order to make this conspiracy work out. What I think happened is if something leaked out of the lab and got out into the world, the government, I think it was a domino effect of panic that went through the government, and then it became solidified policy, and then the policy, they saw what the policy was doing, and whenever government stretches, it doesn't tend to retract. It tends to keep growing. So I think it was accidental, and then became on purpose, and then they don't. Once the rubber band gets stretched, they don't snap back to their starting position. They tend to stay out there.
Yeah, and that's always been my thing, right? This has always been my thing about a lot of different topics. Free speech or cancel culture, right? Once you give that power to somebody, right? Once you give the power to somebody where they can limit what you say, you rarely ever get that back, right? I think it might have been you who told me something like that, who said that once you've given a right away, rarely can you get that back, right?
Yeah, sure.
So with freedom of speech, right? Now you've allowed someone to limit what you can and can't say on Twitter, on Facebook or whatever. The line in the sand will only keep being pushed further and further and further up and up.
I think so. Sure.
And I think that applies to a lot of different things, in consideration to our rights as human beings. We talked about being who's essential, who's not essential, right?
Mm-hmm.
That made no sense to me. So maybe it was an accidental leak, and the government saw an opportunity and just took it. And we're like, this is.
Well, Yeah, I mean, I look at it as a slightly more accidental in the way the power dynamics fell out, but certainly working in the favor of the government and then capitalized on. Who was it? Was it an Obama official that Rahm Emanuel, who said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste"? There is that mentality with the people who are in positions of power right now. They do like to capitalize on chaos, to stretch the government's wings a little further around us. But I don't know that I don't think it starts out as a concerted effort like things like this. So they don't start out conspiratorially. It sort of falls in that direction and then takes on a life of its own.
Yeah. Did you get vaccinated?
Yeah.
You did get vaccinated.
You didn't?
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm not saying unfortunately. I'm saying I did. I did get vaccinated. But I got vaccinated because I didn't have a choice. In order to see my mother in her condition, I had to. So I she already had stage 4 breast cancer. The last thing she needed was to catch COVID.
Right.
So, I that's why I did it, but I probably would have done it anyway. Simply just because I have Crohn's disease, my immune system's already kind of weaker than the normal immune system.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was just a good idea. But I mean, this vaccine came out within a year. That's something that's never been done before.
Well, they've been working on this. They've been working on this technology for quite a long time, and
well, doesn't that make you think anything?
Well, they're working on it for other reasons other than creating vaccines. It has lots of other, I think, applications, and they were working on it.
Well, you're talking about the mRNA.
Yes.
Yes.
But I also think we're used to a regulatory state that takes fucking 50. Sorry, I did it again.
No, we're actually already past it.
So. Now that's 7 now.
Thanks, Caden.
So what was I saying? I just confused.
We don't have a replay here, honestly. We should get a replay. We should get one of those like instant replay things.
What the heck was I talking about? I literally just I self-detonated because I embarrassed myself by doing another cuss word. Now that's so far back though. What were we talking about? You have to know this because you're young. They've been working on this technology for quite a long time. Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, here it is. I got it. Thank you. So
I do have instant replay. Look at that, folks. I'm a man of everything.
It's fantastic. Oh no, so I think people are used to the regulatory state where it takes 15 years to get a drug out. But private enterprise getting together and pooling their resources can get it done in a fraction of that time. So
yeah,
I think we just were witnessing what could be possible if private enterprise were allowed to be free enough to attack a problem without the government directing it. Yeah. We saw that they had a vaccine, within a couple of months of the outbreak. It's the rollouts. It's the state that once again created all the problems.
Okay. Yeah. I it's hard to argue with that. It really is. It's
but I don't know. This is me,
spitballing.
Talking. Yeah,
spitballing here.
I have no access to anybody who knows.
Well, on your newest production, did you wear the masks? Did you follow the procedures? Other than when you were on set.
I did, and I wore a mask every time I went out until 2-3 weeks after I got my second vaccination.
Yeah,
and then I started to force myself to go out without the mask and to reintegrate myself and reacquaint myself with what it's like to be human again.
Right. And a lot of people so they'll get vaccinated, yet they're still out with the mask on.
Yeah.
And there's, I hate to bring him up again because I'm not really a fan of him, but Ben Shapiro did this like thing. It was like a bit where someone went out to people in New York City and they were like, are you vaccinated? The person would say yes or no. And if they said yes, and they only asked people with masks on, and they would be like, well, you're vaccinated. Why are you wearing the mask? And the person would say, I don't know. It just makes me feel better. Like over this year, it is sad.
It's very sad.
It's very sad.
I mean, initially I had PTSD, and it was very uncomfortable for me to walk around in a place inside with my mask on because I'd been wearing a mask for a year every time I went outside. But come on, man, we gotta break through. We gotta break through.
And
well, but in a way, I'm lucky because for the show, I'm tested 3 times a week, every week to stay in cadence, and I got vaccinated, and so I'm tested 3 times a week. So, when not having that testing knowledge, information coming at me 3 times a week, it might make me a little bit more leery with these variants that they say are out there, and people who are vaccinated are getting these variants.
Yes. And that is definitely a concern. How long do you think that this is going to keep going? Do you think we're kind of coming off of it, or do you think that it's?
I think we have a very poor standard of evaluating success. It seems like the political class has a 0 rate of infection as their goal. I think that's an impossibility. And so with that in mind, they can keep us locked down forever. Yes. If people are going to be silly and passive enough to tolerate that, hopefully they won't be.
Yeah.
I think it's something we're going to have to live with, and we're going to have to come up with booster shots for, and maybe at some point in the future, science and technology and the free market can figure out a fuller solution, more permanent solution. But now, let's go out and live. Let's live, please. It's time.
Yeah. So, on set this time, was it different, or was there still the protocols and stuff?
Oh, we have COVID people who are hired to tell you to put your mask on if you're forgetting your mask on. And you have to, if you're going to drink, you can't just lift your mask up and drink. You have to go to a drink station 30, 40 feet away from anyone and drink there.
No.
Towards the end, the protocols were loosening up a bit, but we always had to wear our masks when we were anywhere on the set, even though everybody on the set had been vaccinated. And in the green room, we could relax a little bit more, but not always. But we were all vaccinated. We were all vaccinated in the green room.
That's crazy to me that if in this job that I now have, even though I've been vaccinated, I still, just like you, I have to still get tested once a week. And like, I don't understand it. I get that there's variants out there and stuff, but will the tests pick up the variant? Like, are the tests
I don't know
for them? I just don't understand. Oh, okay. My final question for you. Do you think social media has been an asset to society, or do you think it has been the opposite?
I don't think it's either or. I think it's been mostly an asset, and there's been, of course, some downsides, as there always are with anything. But it is. Good night, man. Thanks, friend. But I think overall it's been an incredible asset. I think it's in some respects, it's broken the back of traditional media. I think it provided alternative sources of information for lots of people. Some of them were fraudulent, of course, but some were great. Some of them was breaking news. It's allowed people who didn't have a voice to have a voice. Some of those people really suck, but some of those people are really good.
Right.
A guy I consider a mentor, Yaron Brook, has a bigger voice now for his podcast than he ever had before. And objectivists like me are pushing out there into the realms of social media and challenging, the thinking that's going on out there. And I think that's
thank you so much.
I think it's really great. Oh yeah, look at Lucky Charms.
That's
is
the
awesome.
third one,
Wow.
man. Thank you so
Lucky
much.
Charms.
You've really, I can't say enough. It's kind of like beside myself here. But thank you. And I mean, thank you. But Mark and I will always be chatting. It will never end. Now that I've got my hooks onto him, he's gonna eventually be a regular. You do like a podcast, right? With Raina?
With Rozzy?
Is it Rozzy? I don't know why I'm blanking.
I do the Daily Objective on Mondays and Thursdays, and then I do a thing called TV Talk on Fridays. We just started. It's in its third week. We did our third show today.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. That's I love podcasting. I love talking to people, and
it ties into that. It ties into the social media aspect of it. Is it's given people voices that normally wouldn't have had a place to voice their opinion or voice their and it's allowed a lot of great, awesome, creative people to be found. But with every positive, there's always a negative. And it's also found negativity and awful people.
Right. But I want to say something about that to anybody listening to or watching, because I think this is important. You have to understand that as bad as negativity can feel and as bad as these negative people can feel when you're confronting them on social media, negativity and evil is weak. It's weak. And what's more important is the strong connections you make with really decent people on social media. Like with you, for example, with Zuby, who I had the debate with tons of people in the Supernatural fam that I've become friends with, I think, over the last year, with thinkers like Gad Sad, Yaron Brook, Brett Weinstein, Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay. I mean, I got to see rebel intellectuals who are out there really trying to make a difference, really fighting the nihilism. Thanks, Alex. Really fighting the nihilism and offering positive values in addition to fighting the nihilism. So they're not just critics of what's in the dominant culture. They're actually people offering alternatives, positive alternatives for people to turn to. I would have never met any of these people had it not been for social media. Yeah. And I'm really grateful for that, because there's some pretty awesome folks, and they're very brave. They're courageous. They're risking lots to put themselves out there the way they do, and they do it. And they're even more articulate spokesmen than I am for these causes and for these ideals, and I'm grateful to know them and learn from them. And I wouldn't be able to do that without social media.
And again, I definitely agree, and I couldn't agree more. I just think, some of the toxicity, like some days it's hard. It really is. It's hard. It's hard to combat it, or it's hard to smile when you see, people or it's hard to imagine someone could wake up with that much hatred in their heart. And I guess like that's, it's always one bad apple, right? It's always, and there's, I don't think we'll ever be able to change that, unless by some miracle, but I don't know how that would happen. But Mark, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. Always. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. And we're almost at 2 hours. Well, we're approaching 2 hours. So, Madeline, by the way, which is this is the girl I was telling you about that I'm dating, and she says that she can't wait to see you in Supernatural. It gives her a little bit of night terrors, so she's only on season 2, but it's totally worth it. So,
well, Lucifer in season 5 is sort of scary. I got to say, he is a scary dude.
Yeah.
Later on, he's a little more fun.
He's definitely a lot more fun. In the first season that you meet him, terrifying. But he becomes, what did you call yourself?
Impish.
A man-child.
A man-child. That's right. He's a man-child.
He becomes a man-child. So
yeah, I would say he's a man in season 5 and a man-child from there on in.
From there on. Well, listen, we still got to get you to get on the boys.
I know.
We still got a campaign. Everyone here or anyone who's watching this after or listening on Spotify, remember to campaign for Mark Pellegrino to get on the boys and reunite with Jensen Ackles and Eric Kripke and Jim Beaver.
Hey, I got to tell you, when you said favorite shows, that was my favorite show last year. I binged that like a madman, and I'll probably go through it a second time.
Yeah,
so I did dig that. I did.
I would love to see you in that. I really would.
No, would I be a superhero, or would I be one of the
No.
gang?
We would have to have you be like someone bad. I think
like a superhero. So I'd be a superhero.
Well,
or maybe somebody like Butcher. I would. Maybe.
Yeah, someone like Billy. But
badass.
Yeah. Billy's, cousin. I don't know. That would be. No, it would be awesome to see you in that. And any is the title of the project that you just finished out?
Yes, it's called Rust.
Rust. The trailer just came out.
Yes, it did. Did you see it?
I did not.
I'm gonna be. I just got some stuff from Showtime. I'm gonna have to post on social media, so I will be posting a trailer soon.
Okay. Well, can you send that my way?
Yes, sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Because they said I can post it on social media, so I'm assuming I could also do it you mean through like a DM and just give it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah, so I can just repost it and kind of like link it to it. But again, I can't thank you enough for doing what you do, not only for the fans, but for representation. In the world, you do a lot for. I mean, you had something to do with anti-bullying, I believe, as well. So you're just a man of many talents, and anyone who, it seems anyone in the Supernatural cast has done overwhelming amounts of work when it comes to public service and charity and stuff like that. So, I truly love all of them, and I still need you to put a call out to Jensen and Jared for me so I can get them on. But when the time comes. But thank you so much for joining me tonight, Mark. It's been so fun and such a pleasure.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So guys, thank you. We raised actually quite a bit of money tonight with the help of Mr. Mark Pellegrino. Raised a lot of money for breast cancer in our tribute fund tonight. Guys, we literally couldn't do it without you. So remember to like this video, share it, subscribe, do all that stuff. And also you can follow Mark on Twitter at Mark L. Pellegrino, and then check out when he posts it and when I post it, the trailer for Rust, because it's gonna be amazing. Because I mean, it's got Mark in it, so it's gonna be amazing. But with that being said, guys, till next time, I'll see you tomorrow. We do it for you, and we do it for the culture.